Peace and justice are something that are very much on all of our hearts. And especially here in a town that's known for its military presence. And we're all supportive of the Naval Academy. I sponsor night midshipmen at the Naval Academy right now. We've got a new one coming on soon. They'll be arriving in July. But the cost of this war and the purpose of the war can be brought into question. The enormous cost of this war and its effect on our local economy are the subject of this meeting tonight. Not the rights or wrongs of this war. I think we've all got opinions about that. We have strong opinions, many of us. But tonight we're here to look at simply the cost of the Iraq War, where we are at this point, and what we can expect in cost in the future, even if the war were to end tomorrow. But I want to welcome two speakers tonight. Jan Chaplin, who is with Anne Arundel Peace Action. Jan has become a very close friend. She's known to many of us who are here tonight. And I want to welcome Jan, if you would come and say a few words. And if you would introduce Greg's speaker.
Thanks, Sam. Well, I contend that we can't afford Washington anymore. They are spending our money. And until we get vocal about it, we'll continue to spend our money. And, for example, the President's request for funding includes cuts that would deeply affect our community and many vital services in our community. At the same time, he proposed tax cuts for the richest 10%. The Iraq War has already cost Maryland billions of dollars, over $10 billion, with another $2.6 billion in approved costs. And that doesn't count the unfunded liabilities, such as health care, pensions, benefits for our vets, which they desperately need. More of, in fact. There's a recent book out. Many of you read this, $3 Trillion War, written by, I know Greg has, our next speaker, written by Joseph Stiglitz and Linda Bilmes. Mr. Stiglitz was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2001. And Linda Bilmes is an expert in government accounting. And she's also a professor at Harvard University in Advanced Accounting. And she was former chief financial officer of the U.S. Department of Commerce. So she knows, I think the mic is on. Can you hear me, Pat? Okay. She knows government accounting very well. It took them 2 years to research the information. And I tell you, I can't go through 1 or 2 pages without being absolutely shocked at the shady accounting of our government. The Pentagon keeps 2 sets of books. They hide numbers. If this were a public company, they would be in deep trouble with the SEC. And in fact, once she found some numbers on a Pentagon website and confronted them, or actually one of the Pentagon called her and asked where she got her information. She said, from your website. I said, well, I haven't seen that. Could you fax it to me? And so she faxed the pages to the guy. Well, the next day, the numbers were gone. So it's like they're intentionally trying to hide information from us. And it's our money, I think we need to be, Pentagon removes $3 trillion price tag for the war from their website after it was exposed. And they are estimating that conservatively, this war will cost us $3 trillion, conservatively, by the time we're done. Realistically, $5 trillion. And it could be up to $7 trillion. And in fact, just as an example of what continued responsibilities financially cost, the invasion of Iraq in 1991, it lasted 6 weeks. We are still paying, and they deserve it, don't get me wrong, but we are still paying veterans benefits of $4.6 billion a month. And I think they deserve more care than they're getting. But just an idea of the unfunded liabilities and responsibilities that we have long term. And as Sam said, this is not about the rights or wrongs of the war. This is about the financial impact. What I'm shocked about, in looking at some of the numbers for national priorities, and you'll hear more about it when our next speaker speaks, is the cost, is the trade-offs, what this money could have paid for in our communities. And, for example, in this book, $1 trillion, for example, could have paid for 43 million Americans to get a 4-year college degree at a university. And there are other costs. What it could have done in public housing and transportation. It could have funded Social Security for 50 years. And we're not getting a vote. And it's our contention that we need to be more vocal and express our concerns to our elected officials. In fact, I've heard that some elected officials actually want to be more aggressive about voting against funding for some of these things, but they don't get enough calls from their constituents about what their constituents want. Every call or letter that they get, they assume that that opinion represents about 20 people. So it's not just you calling. They feel that you represent about 20 people who have the same feeling. And, you know, there are 5.1 million Maryland residents. We have 10 elected officials in Congress, 8 in the House, and 2 senators. What if just 10% of the 5.1 million call those elected officials once a month? Do you think that might have an impact? I think this needs to be addressed. They're not spending our money the way we want to spend. I think we collectively can be more assertive about telling them what we want. Usually education comes up as a high priority. And what you'll see is that education in reality is a very low priority. It's interesting, some of the articles you can find. Can Congress even govern itself? You know, what they'll do is they'll sneak some things into bills on purpose, and then they'll pull things out. And war is actually big, big business. It's very profitable for a lot of people. And there's some that contend that wars are created to make money. I've got some examples. The United States, if you look at the amount of money we spend on the military, and again, I'm not referring to what the vets get. They deserve the best care in the world. But this number, unfortunately, they're not getting the best care. Money's been squandered in a lot of other areas. But if you look at the global spending of the United States spends 48% of the whole world. We spend almost half what the whole world spends on military and defense. In fact, we should all be invited to thank you parties from the companies that are profiting from this. GE is one of the big defense contractors. GE also owns NBC television. ABC? Thank you. Thank you for that correction. They own ABC television.
NBC on ABC.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, we got it correct. So they own NBC. I wonder why we don't hear some opinions on major media. In fact, major media controls 6 corporations control 80% of the media. And many of them are connected to defense contractors. Then another interesting, what I find interesting is why don't we have full disclosure with our elected officials? How much money they get from defense companies and oil companies. It's pretty amazing. I've got oil contributions to senators, oil contributions to representatives. You know, big oil companies favor representatives. And then if you look at some of the companies that have benefited from this war, there's a pretty close connection. So, at the same time, states are getting budget cuts all over. 27 states face budget cuts of at least $47 billion. And services that are vitally important. Many states are imposing cuts that hurt vulnerable residents. Campaigning against poverty. It goes on and on and on. The documentation that's available outside of mainstream media from research organizations such as National Priorities is just amazing. But most of us are not getting that information. So, getting back to education, most people feel that's a priority. But yet, the United States, this was in 2004, the United States ranked 49th in the world in literacy. So it's clear money isn't getting where most people feel it should get.